Hello, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. I've enabled closed captioning. If anyone needs to use that, please go ahead. I won't be offended if it's just because I have a British accent. We'll see how well that goes. I think you can toggle it off if it's distracting for you. But welcome everyone. I'm gonna get right on. We've got a fantastic, just tipping into 100 people joining us. We had 600 registered, so we'll see how we go. But I'm going to begin. My name is Jade Harvey-Beryl, and I'm part of the team at the Outdoor Learning Store, and we are a charitable social enterprise that offers outdoor learning equipment and resources for educators and learners, while supporting outdoor learning nonprofit organisations as we go. I also work closely with Take Me Outside, who's our partner in delivering this workshop. I'm joining you today from the land of the Niskakas, or the Chickadee, for the Tanaha people. It's also an area that's been widely used for thousands of years by the Snipes, the Shwemuk, and the Okanagan Silks First Nations people. So we know that in the context of outdoor learning, where we are in Canada, it's fundamental to develop our understanding of local traditional ecological knowledge and their perspectives that have been developed in connecting to nature over thousands of years. We want to take the time to nurture the relationships with Indigenous people who've called this place home for a long time. And so if it's relevant to your place, we do have some people coming in internationally. But if it is relevant, we encourage you to consider what you can do to deepen your understanding, and with that, invite you to share in the chat what Indigenous territories you are joining us from today. See if we get a little waterfall going, and then I'll let Farheen introduce herself.
Thank you, Jade. And hi, everyone. My name is Farheen. I'm part of the Take Me Outside team. And on behalf of our organization and our 27 outdoor learning partners, we're really excited to welcome you all to our first workshop in our winter series. I'm joining you today from the traditional territories of the Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and Anishinaabe people in the Greater Toronto area.
Thanks. For those of you just joining us, welcome. Bit of Zoom 101. Please type any questions you have in the chat. Farheen's going to be collecting them up, and then we're going to pose them to our presenters at the end of their 3 presentations. Please stay muted, but you can have your video on or off. It's nice to see some faces to present to, but you're under no necessity to. So just to get things going, I have a couple of polls. I asked you where you're from your Indigenous acknowledgement, but I'm going to ask you where you're joining us from in a sort of grander scale. Are you Western, Central, Northern, Eastern Canada? Are you joining us from the States? Are you a European? We had a Dutch guy last workshop who stayed up till midnight to join us. Are you one of those crazy people? Or somewhere even far more flung? Just going to give us a couple more seconds. Pretty well represented in Canada. Hello to our American friends. Thanks for joining us. Some Western, Central, so representing all across the United States. That's fantastic. Okay, 3, 2, 1 in the poll. And as you can see, yeah, pretty well spread out a bit. So thanks so much. And the next one is, who are you? So are you an early childhood educator? Are you teaching kindergarten to grade 3, 4, 6, 7, 9, older? Are you an informal educator, a camp leader, a counsellor, a recreation group? Like me, someone who goes in as a community educator into schools. Are you forest school, where you might be teaching a wider age range, or something else? I like that. Learning support assistant, perhaps. Hello to people joining us. Hello, thanks for saying hi in the chat. And something else entirely, just here for the fun. I enjoy that. These are supposed to be fun and engaging. We want you to have a good time. Thank you very much for joining us. Almost at 90% participants. I'm going to give you 5 more seconds. 3, 2, 1. and we'll share those out. So as you can see, like, we've got a little bit of everything in here. So we hope that we will provide you with a little bit of everything, and that this will be a valuable experience for you. So the Canadian Outdoor Learning Full Virtual Workshop Series, whew, that's a big mouthful, is brought to you by a group of over 25 partners and advisors from across Canada and beyond now, which offer excellent outdoor and environmental education resources, programs, and support. I'm just going to run through their names as I start my slide. And yes, welcome you to resources to teach and learn for a sustainable future. And I'm going to introduce our hosts in a little bit. But here we have our partners. So Take Me Outside, the Pacific Foundation for Understanding Nature Society, Ecom, GreenTeacher, GreenLearning, Natural Curiosity, Water Rangers, Seabean, EAPSA, WildSight, Geoc, Sask Outdoors, ACE, Stoked on Science, Get Outside and Play, OC, Classroom to Communities, KB, Learning for a Sustainable Future, Eco Schools Canada, ImagineEd, Leave No Trace, Nature for All, Megan Zenny, the New Brunswick Environmental Network, the Outdoor Council of Canada, Seapaws, Oceanwise, Project Wet, and our last two, Interpretation Canada and Interpretive Guides Association. So welcome to the workshop today. We have a host of three fantastic people who are very expert in their fields to share with us today. We have Ian Shanahan. He's the general editor of GreenTeacher and co-hosts of the podcast Talking with Green Teachers and Earthy Chats. In all capacity, he engages with K-12 educators, and he's also a phenomenal fieldbook artist, interpretive guide, anything you want, he's got it. Next up is Sydney Howlett. She's joining us from GreenLearning. She's a former Ontario French teacher and the engagement manager at GreenLearning. She supports educators from grade 3 to 12 in empowering their students to take action on complex issues relating to climate change, energy, and the green economy. Welcome, Sydney. And last but not least, bringing up the rear with a fantastic finish to our workshop today will be Jen Stevens. She's the Manager of Learning, Research and Communications at Learning for a Sustainable Future, LSF. While there, she works to support educators and students integrating sustainability into the classroom. So pretty hopeful that we're going to have some fantastic things. So with that, I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to throw it over to Ian, who's going to start sharing his fantastic presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jade, and hello, everybody, and welcome to this kickoff of the Winter Workshop Festival. It's a real pleasure always to be here with the Outdoor Learning Store and our other outdoor and environmental learning colleagues, so Sydney with GreenLearning and Jen with Learning for a Sustainable Future. I say this in so many meetings that we have among ourselves as organizations that it all feels like one big cooperative with all of us pulling in the same direction, and I mean that wholeheartedly, and it's very motivating and very gratifying to be part of such a collaborative community that really is trying to support each other in reaching a sustainable future and also bringing about regeneration, because as so many of us know, when it comes to issues like the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and the amount of wild space remaining, we're really operating from a position of debt, to put it in economic terms, and we need to regenerate, we need to draw down, and these are certainly terms that we hear of a lot. In fact, it's the name of two books, both written by Paul Hawken, or both facilitated and edited by Paul Hawken. I often start programs about climate change education by asking participants to do a bit of word association, or I guess by definition, phrase association. I was taught that a grouping of two or more words that is not a sentence is technically a phrase. If it is a sentence, it's a clause, but I don't want to get into a grammar rabbit hole, at least not at the beginning of a presentation. Getting into the finer points of grammar probably isn't the best advice. But I'm not going to do word association or phrasal association. What I would like you to share, however, in the chat box, just by typing in, is how you can overcome the barrier of eco-anxiety when it comes to issues like biodiversity loss, sustainability, mitigation of climate change. We talk a lot about the problems. I think a lot of us know the importance of talking more about the solutions. And an extension of the solutions piece, as huge reams of research has shown, is the agency piece. Hope that is based in clear-eyed reality and is based on action, much of it local and measurable. So what are some ways, as you're thinking about ways to overcome eco-anxiety, particularly among your learners, what are some ways that you can help overcome that eco-anxiety through agency? So we'll just take a minute or so for you to share some ideas in the chat. And as I'll use Jade's term, we'll probably see a waterfall of responses here very shortly. I always like to just get a sense of some of the challenges and opportunities that exist in the various educational settings. And I do choose that word opportunities quite deliberately because it's a really critical piece to the climate change, sustainability, and regeneration discussion. So certainly seeing some really neat ideas, taking nature walks, connecting with the earth, regenerative, adopting a stream for cleanup, certainly very local, very measurable, school gardens. Yeah, some of them are appearing quicker than I can read them, but I take that as a positive sign. So certainly recycling. Yeah, learn local plants, most definitely. That's something that's near and dear to my heart. My background being in parks-based interpretation and going out and telling the stories of species and the associations among species. It is really remarkable, the diversity of species on a even semi-manicured lawn. Go out into your local park or green space and see if you can count the number of smartweed species and the number of mint species that are growing, particularly during the warm season. And it really is quite remarkable. And then the natural extension of that is insects. So wonderful ideas appearing in the chat. And listen to Mr. Rogers, love the reference there. It almost makes me think that some of what I'm going to be discussing with you here this evening might be redundant, but I think that's certainly a positive thing. There's a fine balance that we all have to grapple with when it comes to bestowing a sense of agency among our learners, but also being realistic about the situation at hand. We actually shared through two of our social media channels with GreenTeacher earlier this afternoon, a really useful graphic that was put together from the folks at The Skeptical Scientist. And for those who are not familiar with The Skeptical Scientist, it's skepticism in the true meaning of the word in the context of science, not skeptical as in let's ignore the facts that have clearly been proven. This graphic was all about a concept known as discourses of delay. And again, many of you are probably familiar with this. And if not by that term, you're probably quite familiar with it just in terms of how it manifests in everyday situations. So the basic crux of discourses of delay is that outright denial of climate change is a ship that has long since sailed, and there's very little credibility to be had in presenting those arguments, even among the crowd of folks who are actively trying to push back against the science. So the tactics that have been adopted much more so now are deflection and delay. Delaying in the sense that, yes, let's decarbonize, but let's slow down the process. Let's make sure that we don't shut down the existing fossil fuel industries. However, that doesn't take into account the fact that renewable energy in many cases has become cheaper than fossil fuels per megawatt hour. Deflection to individual responsibility. Some of you may have read Dr. Michael E. Mann's recent book, The New Climate War, which came out last year. And it talks in great detail about the fact that there has been this seismic shift from outright denial to deflection to personal responsibility. And the concept of a carbon footprint, as a good number of you may know, was actually conceived by BP. And it really is quite insidious because thinking about our own impact on the land, the water, and the air, and our fellow species, it makes sense to pay attention to our carbon footprint and the amount that we are taking and putting back. And all of this is very important. This is not a dichotomy. It's not a one or other situation. However, by getting a large swath of the population to focus solely on their own individual footprints, it takes away from the impacts that will have the biggest change, which are policy changes, divesting from fossil fuels, investing in renewables, which, as I mentioned, in many cases are at price parity, solar, wind, geothermal. Depending on the specific location you're at, one or more of those might be the more viable option. So on one hand, we have this cautionary tale that we need to not solely focus on individual action. However, we also need to bestow a sense of agency in our students. And how better to do that than by focusing on local individual actions. However, these individual actions can be done in a collective. And it doesn't mean that you're scaling up to the societal level and making policy changes, but it does mean that you are scaling up somewhat, and from a place of the individual to maybe a class of 25 students or 30 students. And perhaps that can balloon to an entire school or an entire district. If you run an initiative, for example, that starts with a challenge to reduce the number of days that you use a fossil fuel powered vehicle to get to school, start with an individual challenge within your class. And that's one of the activities that we have in one of our 2 climate change resource books. And GreenTeacher's 2 most recent books are both about climate change. There's Teaching Kids About Climate Change, which I have many copies of on hand at all times, and then Teaching Teens About Climate Change. Actually, I did that in reverse order. This is Teaching Kids. The first one was Teaching Teens. And in our Teaching Teens book, we have such an activity about reducing transportation, and it starts with the individual level. Assign it for individual students to do. Then do it on a class-wide level and maybe have it as a competition. And then expand out to a school-wide level. And then who doesn't like school-to-school competition within your school board or district? Have a competition of how much carbon or greenhouse gas equivalents you can prevent from getting into the atmosphere over the course of a week, a month, a year. These are the types of activities that can be scaled up within the reasonable means of most learning settings that get us away from this problem of only focusing on individual actions, but also allow our students to see something measurable, something that changes, something that does make an impact, and something that impacts their own lives and their own communities. As another large ream of research has shown, thinking about climate change as somebody else's problem somewhere else is not a particularly effective way of engaging students in exploring it. And while there are certainly areas of the world, particularly in the global south, where the impacts of climate change on the whole are much more acutely felt than many areas in the temperate zone, there still are impacts that are being felt at many scales, essentially everywhere. And it's not just in terms of wild spaces and agriculture. It's being felt in terms of displacements of people and fast, drastic displacements of large numbers of people. And the challenges socially and economically and culturally and politically that those bring. And unfortunately, we are seeing more and more of this all the time, even in the industrialized West and in more temperate countries like Canada, the US, and various countries in Western Europe. I see a question in the chat box about where you can get these books. So you can get all of these resources featured in this presentation tonight at the Outdoor Learning Store. And as Jade mentioned, it is a social enterprise. It's a nonprofit, and all the proceeds do go back into supporting outdoor learning right across Canada and increasingly so beyond, because that border, the longest border in the world, what is a border when it comes to nature and air and water, watersheds? And Jade just included the link in the box there as well. It is important, particularly as you get more into working with high school students, to have these discussions about policy. And there's a wonderful activity in our Teaching Teens About Climate Change book where it allows students to partake in a simulation activity where they look at the impacts environmentally and economically on different realistic but imaginary utilities companies and how those would be impacted in different scenarios, such as a cap and trade situation, a carbon tax, a more top-down command and control sort of situation, which is all of which have their place. There are going to be places where a top-down command control situation probably will be necessary for rapid, drastic decarbonization. Whereas we look at examples like in California, where cap and trade, and in many areas where carbon pricing has been used and has had significantly positive results in terms of reducing carbon dioxide emissions and the emissions of other greenhouse gases like methane, nitrous oxide, and so on. So that's one of the crown jewel activities in our Teaching Teens book, and it's this one here again, Teaching Teens About Climate Change. And really, in wrapping up here, these two books essentially function as toolkits. There's a tremendous amount of wonderful research out there about effective climate change education, and much of that comes from all of the organizations that are represented here tonight, and from climate communicators and academics and educators all around the world. And all of that is wonderful, and there's so much of it, it's hard to keep up with, and that is one of the best problems to have, in my opinion. Our books take much of those findings and distill them into activities and lessons that you can use tomorrow in your class. And these are hands-on. Many, if not all of them, can be done very easily outdoors or adapted quite easily to be done outdoors. And the idea is to make this a constructive, active process where students have agency and feel that they can do something about this while thinking about that bigger picture and beyond the power of the individual. Again, not to say that the power of the individual is unimportant. Of course, it's important. We need all solutions on deck, but we do have to keep in mind this concept of scaling up beyond the individual, because that is ultimately the only way that we are going to reach our various targets by 2030, 2035, 2050, 2070, 2100. That's all I have for you this evening. I don't want to take any further time away from my two fellow presenters, but I look forward to any questions that you have and the discussion that will ensue later in this webinar.
Thank you, Ian, so much. And yes, really just the effort that's gone into the activities in both of those books. And I've used them personally in classrooms with all different age groups. You know, some of them are more running around games that get them to think about the way carbon stays in the atmosphere. And then some of these deeper dive projects that really just take you to a place of deep thought, critical thinking and taking action. It's fantastic. So moving on to our next presenters, I'm going to welcome Sydney from GreenLearning, and she's going to share with us some of the resources that they've been developing. Take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Jade. Well, it's really great to see everyone here today. Nice to see a full room. Thank you so much, Ian, for getting us kicked off with that. I think a lot of what I'm going to share really just builds off of what Ian was talking about and the activities that he was demonstrating. So really awesome resources that I'm just going to kind of continue on building upon. So as I mentioned, my name's Sydney. I'm from GreenLearning. If you've never heard of GreenLearning before, we are a Canadian-wide organization that creates free online education programs about energy, climate change, and the green economy. Today, I'm going to be taking you through a really, really high level and very brief look at some of our most popular resources. I will send this over to the folks at Take Me Outside in Canada's Outdoor Learning Store. All of the resources that I'm showing are linked in here, so you'll be able to come back to them later and explore a little bit further for yourself. The very first resource that I want to share is actually one that we do have in the Outdoor Learning Store, and it's called Sela in the Land. This is a children's book exploring environmental stewardship through Indigenous teachings. This was co-authored by 3 fabulous Indigenous youth. They were in high school at the time, and it was illustrated by an Indigenous youth as well. So not only is there learning there, but we also have a ton of fantastic activities to go along with it. These activities are good essentially for grade 1 to 8. The exact range of the activity is right within there, and all of our programs are completely free online. You do have to register for a free login, but once you do that once, you get access to all the resources that I'm going to show today. So the actual book you can buy at the Outdoor Learning Store, and all of the resources you can access anytime online on our website. Next, I'm going to take you through a number of different programs, and each of our programs is linked directly to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So on each program page, you'll see whatever Sustainable Development Goals are linked directly to that program. You can click on them, explore. We also do have curriculum connections in all of our programs, so you can download them. They're mostly by province, so mostly Canadian. But if you are looking for connections specifically for an activity, you can always reach out and we're happy to help you. So the program here is Decoding Carbon. And as Ian mentioned, policy is one of the biggest drivers for change, and something that we all need to use our voice to advocate for. And that's what Decoding Carbon is all about. It's a climate policy quest to get students thinking and understanding what is climate policy? How can I talk about climate policy with politicians, with my family, with my peers, and what perspectives need to be considered when we're talking about policy. So throughout our programs, you'll see themes of Indigenous activities, get outside activities, different games, but a lot of simulators as well. So this particular program has about 10 activities in it. And the final activity is to actually use one of the 2 simulators that we list here. So this is a climate policy simulator where students can actually manipulate different factors that are influenced by policy. So for example, you can see here, I have electrification incentivized. So if you're looking to increase the electrification of the grid and looking to move away from fossil fuels, how will that impact our overall goals to reach our Paris climate target agreements? And so students can use this and really manipulate and really understand for themselves how these different factors interact and can be used to help be part of the solution for our climate crisis. Each of our programs does have a culminating task, or we call them challenges. In Decoding Carbon, it is for students to actually write and propose their own climate policy for Canada. Last year's winner wrote a beautiful policy that was very local to her community, and it had to do with restoring land as other land is being developed. And so the ideas that students come up with throughout this challenge are really personal to them and really relevant, but can also be applied to larger scales as well. The next program I'm going to talk about is called Energy Revealed. So this is all about energy conservation, energy efficiency, and climate action. The program is broken up into 2 different groups. Again, it is suitable for grades 4 to 12. We have a junior version, which is elementary, so anything from grade 4 to 8, and then our senior learners, which would be grade 9 to 12. In this program, students actually become energy managers. And I do want to take a second to just show you some of our energy calculators. We currently have special calculators for Ontario, Alberta, and BC. And by the end of spring, we will have a calculator for every province and territory in Ontario, which is really, really exciting. And so what this calculator does is students can look at how much energy a device uses. So for example, I typically start off by talking about my hair blow dryer. It uses about 1,200 watts, and that information can be found with a watt meter on the tag or in the description of the device if you're buying it online. I use it for about 10 minutes a day, and I can calculate my energy use. So it's going to tell me exactly how many kilowatt hours a year I'm using, what the equivalent kilograms of greenhouse gas emissions I'm producing, and how much it's costing me. So I can do this for anything from lights to TVs to computers, whatever types of devices I'm using. And it is specific to province or territory, which just makes it even more relevant for students. And these calculators are used throughout our program. And you can use that to compare, for example, in the Speak for the Trees activity, we compare energy use to what a tree can absorb in a year. So if the sequestration potential of a tree is 21 kilograms of greenhouse gas emissions a year, what am I emitting, and how can I better offset that? And so we start with a really localized level, looking at what the individual student can do, and then we grow from there. And the hope is that students get to be a full school-wide approach. And that's why the challenge for the Energy Revealed program is to actually host and track a school Earth hour. But it's a little bit more than just turning out the lights. We actually want students to be able to measure their progress, measure their impact, and that's where the calculators really come in. And we support you throughout that program the entire way. If you're like, whoa, I've never measured energy before, we can definitely support you with that. The next program I'm going to talk about is Re-Energy. So Ian mentioned as well the process of going towards renewable energy. And part of that is that we need to prepare our students not only to use renewable energy, so such as an electric vehicle in the future, but also to become those engineers. And that's really what this program focuses on. It's very hands-on, getting students to build these actual models. So in the program, it's broken up by type of renewable energy technology. And we have construction plans for every model that you see on the screen right now. So students could build a solar oven, they could build a hydroelectric generator, a wind turbine. There are so many options in this program, all completely student friendly. Backgrounders to understand all of the different technologies, and even some simulators. So I'm also going to hop over really quickly and just show you one of our simulators, which is a wind turbine simulator. So when you're learning about these things, sometimes it's not possible to take students to a wind turbine to explore. And in that case, we use simulators. So here students can adjust the wind speed, the wind direction, and discover different information about wind turbines. There are a couple different pages through this. So once they get through this, they can go and learn about the different parts of a wind turbine and lots of really fun interactive pieces in this program. The challenge is to build any type of renewable energy model. Last year, the winners actually retrofitted golf carts to be solar powered, but second place was a solar oven made out of cardboard and recycled materials. And so it really ranges, and students have a lot of fun building these renewable energy models. So easily our most popular program. There we go. The next program is Eco 360, transitioning to a circular economy. So whereas the other programs were all suitable for grades 4 to 12, this really is a secondary school program. It was designed with chemistry in mind for grades 9 to 12, and has quite a few labs in it. So if you're a chemistry, biology teacher, you're looking for some labs to really engage your students specifically on plastic waste and circular economy. This is absolutely the program for you. There's all different pieces in here, from what is plastic to where does it come from and where does it go and how is it ending up in our environment and what is the impact of that. The challenge here is for students to come up with their own innovative plan to eliminate plastic waste from the environment. Whether it's a social media campaign, product, whatever it may be, there's tons of options here. And we want students to get creative and start becoming those innovative thinkers that we know they all are. The last program I'm going to talk about today is also suitable for grades 4 to 12. And for my folks on the West Coast here, this might be particularly relevant to you. I know I had a lot of BC teachers reaching out recently with the recent floods to talk about this in their classrooms and really engage their students and empower their students with the things that they can do in order to help build resilience to flooding, better understand it. So for example, looking at the runoff footprint. So when a big rainfall event happens, how much of that water is being absorbed into the ground and how much of it is being washed away or needs to find somewhere else to go. It is really localized again. So in the water, floodplains, and watershed activity, we're not talking generally water, floodplains, and watersheds. Students are actually going to different resources and discovering where are they located on a watershed. You know, where are they in this geographical environment, and how does that impact their flood resiliency? There are both learning activities and take action activities in this program. Lots of ways that students can take action, starting from protecting their home to adopting a drain to building a rain garden in their school. Again, there are lots and lots of options. The challenge is for students to either plan for or take action to become more resilient to flooding. Planning is just as important, as we know, as actually taking action in the case of flooding. If you're not prepared, that can be a really dangerous situation, and that's where we want to start with students in this program. But that is it for me. And I know that that was a ton of information. And I hope that there was a resource there that sparked interest for you, or that you felt that you could bring into your classroom. If you do have any questions about them, you want to take a slower, deeper look into any of our programs, I'm going to drop my email in the chat, and I really do encourage you to reach out. I do one-to-one support with teachers, completely free, just supporting you in implementing the resources or completing a challenge with your class. And we also host lots of workshops online. They're all completely virtual. So whether you're learning blended in person or online, we can help you out there as well. So I hope that was helpful for you folks, and I'm looking forward to the discussion at the end.
Beautiful, Sydney. Thank you so much. Lots of people after Ian's and yours saying, wow, so much information, so fantastic. We will follow up with an email as well with key links where you can take the time to look into this at your own pace. And like you say, there's support there from people. Thank you so much. And so last but most definitely not least, we're rolling over to Jen Stevens, who's joining us from Learning for a Sustainable Future. He's going to cap off the night with some amazing climate sustainability initiatives. Go, Jen.
Thanks, Jade. And I will not help with the overwhelming factor. I'm going to just run through a lot of resources, a bit of a tasting menu of what LSF has to offer, and that we can support you in taking on and learning about sustainability in your classroom. So I'll just share my screen here. And okay, so thanks for the introduction. My name is Jen, and I work for Learning for a Sustainable Future. I'll give a quick intro about LSF. Our goal is to work together with educators, students, parents, government, community members to integrate the concept of sustainability into the education system through policy, curriculum connections, teacher education, and learning in many different ways across Canada. So this is what I'll be covering today. I'm going to go through some of our offerings here, and hopefully won't overwhelm you more, but maybe just inspire you to integrate all of these amazing resources that you hear about tonight into any type of learning and teaching that you can. So first things first is our youth forums and action projects. So our youth forums were typically run as full day conference style events, bringing together students to learn about sustainability and how they can take action in their classroom. We've now transitioned them to fully online 6-week event series. And within these event series, classes or groups of students are presented with a number of workshop options about sustainability or climate change issues that are intended to equip them with skills and knowledge and empower them to take action in their classroom with the support of a $500 grant at the end of the process. So themes for these forums include the Sustainable Development Goals, climate action, water, etc. And our virtual workshops are delivered by organizations, both national and local, as well as individual experts, community members, and elders to try and provide diverse perspectives and respond to classroom needs as much as we possibly can, including Sydney from GreenLearning has presented some amazing workshops for us in our fall youth forums that we appreciate. And the delivery is entirely flexible. So we record all of the sessions, and they're all made available to classes after the fact. So if you want to jump in and participate on your own schedule, that is available to you. So these are the forums that we're running right now in the winter. So some are upcoming. We've just started a few of them. But like I said, everything is recorded and designed to be a flexible delivery. So we can accommodate all types of classes, homeschooling, at school, for any students and teachers that want to get involved in sustainability and climate learning and want access to a grant to take an action project on. So that brings me to our general action project grants that we have to offer. So if you are already doing amazing things in your class, or you're inspired to take action, or your students are inspired, to us, action is the final piece of any learning strategy. And I know Ian mentioned that and Sydney reiterated. So when the knowledge gets consolidated and applied, it's important that students can feel like they are making real change and take action in their community. So we like to support that in any way that we can. And we have many ways to do that. So one of which is through our youth forums, but youth schools can also apply for funding directly through LSF's website. And at the end of the year in May, end of May and beginning of June, classes post or students post the projects that they've done, and all of the projects that are posted are eligible for an award. So $3,000 for first place, $2,000 second place, and $1,000 for the third place award. And next, I will just touch on our resource database. So resources for rethinking is a goldmine if you aren't familiar with it. It has over 1,700 free lesson plans, books, outdoor activities, videos, and you can search by curriculum connection, by your province, by specific strand even, and find resources that are fully teacher reviewed and ready to integrate into your classroom. So you know that they're high quality. Each individual resource is from many different amazing organizations all over the world and reviewed by teachers to integrate into your classroom. And then Learning Inside Out was developed as a response to an abrupt transition to online learning in 2020, but it became a really popular resource and it's stuck around ever since. So we send weekly sustainability connected resources to your inbox. You're basically on an email list and you get weekly suggestion, whether they're sustainability, SDG connected to something happening relevant in the world at that time, and outdoor activities each week that you can take and bring into your teaching. And then I just wanted to highlight one of LSF's Keystone Professional Development resources that is newly available on the Outdoor Learning Store, alongside the incredible company of the resources that Sydney and Ian have talked about tonight. This resource supports teachers in linking transformative teaching practices to environmental education. So it really focuses on 7 core strategies that are central to learning with today's students and that can help you create a strong foundation for climate change education and for student action. I won't go too much into this because the Outdoor Learning Store is actually hosting a workshop or a webinar fully on this topic in a couple of weeks with the author of the book, Susan Elliott. So if you're interested in learning more, you can attend that. And then LSF released last year a climate change inquiry guide for grades 7 to 12 students. So this you can find at climatelearning.ca, and it's called Empowering Learners in a Warming World. And this is a cross-curricular climate change resource that brings together amazing resources from all over the internet, from all the resources that we can find. We highlight teaching activities from teaching teams about climate change, actually, and up-to-date climate knowledge that will help teachers in a guided inquiry process. So it brings students to the center of the learning. There are guided inquiries on different topics for how you can approach climate change from different approaches, including a health perspective, Indigenous perspectives, low carbon economy, economic perspectives, youth agency is the final chapter, and each chapter culminates with taking action as well, with ways that students can take action, as well as action project examples from students across Canada and within the world. We are coming out with a K-2 and a 3-6 version of this guide later this year. So stay tuned if you teach younger grades and you're interested in accessing a resource like this. It is coming soon. And then finally, I want to touch on LSF's professional development opportunities. So we offer both virtual and in-person PD institutes for 1, 2, or 3 days in English and French. Right now, we're not offering many in-person institutes, but fingers crossed, hopefully they will come back soon. And we host these when we have funding for them, but we can also do them by board request or individual request. And they're delivered by seasoned educators and facilitators that are teachers, retired teachers, experienced facilitators, where we hope that the teachers, all the teachers in the room become the students and get to see what inquiry learning is like from the other side as everyone learns together and learns from one another, and talk about effective learning strategies and how to approach different sustainability issues in your classroom. And then really finally, one of LSF's most recent programs or newest programs is called Sustainable Future Schools Program. And this takes a whole school approach to sustainability and helps students, teachers, principals, staff, and parents, community members integrate the UN Sustainable Development Goals into school culture at every level possible. Teaching, learning, curriculum, the facilities, and operations, community partnerships. So we're currently piloting a whole school sustainable future school in Manitoba, Ontario, and Quebec. And we're always interested in speaking to interested teachers or administrators if there might be interest in your school or community. So all of this information that I talked about tonight is on our website, and I'll pop my email in the chat as well. We also post often on social media and update there. So hopefully that wasn't too much information, but there were some takeaways. And thanks again to the Outdoor Learning Store.
Thank you, Jen. I love it. There was a lot of information, but it's all so helpful and so beautifully presented from all three, showing how much passion and interest there is in these topics. And it's so amazing to see, 100 of you here ready to take this into your classrooms or your space. So it's all pretty amazing. We're going to start our little Q&A session here. So please pop any questions in the chat that you haven't. I'm going to start things off because a few people were asking which resources were available in French. So I'm going to start with you, Ian. You said there are some available on a website.
Yeah, so we have many of the activities that are in the books. We have French translations on our companion site, which is all en français. It's Prof Vert. And I saw that Jade had included the link in the chat box. And it's subscriber-based, just like our English site. And it has a huge number of useful activities, many of which are featured in those books. So that's what we have at the moment. We are in the process of doing French translations of the books, but won't have those ready for some months yet.
Thank you, Ian. Sydney, how about you with GreenLearning? Do we have a French in anything there?
We do have a few resources in French, and I'm just going to quickly share my screen again, if that's okay, and just show you that on our resources page, you can actually filter by French resources. So if you are looking for something specific, you can have a look there. I will let you know that they are fairly limited. As a former French teacher, that's something that I'm super passionate about. We have lots of French resources that are coming down the pipeline, hopefully by the end of spring. So if you want to join our newsletter or send me a direct message, and I can add you to our French resource mailing list for when that comes out. But for right now, we're pretty limited in what we have in French.
And Jen, how are we doing with the LSF French situation?
Yeah, most of our resources are bilingual. We're a fully bilingual organization. So the climate change guide is available in French. Resources for rethinking, same thing as Sydney. You can turn on the French side and find what resources are available there. And Learning Inside Out is a French mailing list. So definitely encourage you to take a look there. There's lots there for you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. The next question that I'll pose to all of you is about early childhood education. We've got some people here that are interested in resources for preschool ages. Anything there, Ian, that you can share?
Not specifically, and I'm really appreciative that that question is in there because it is so important, and we've been getting more requests for that. So that's certainly something that we're aiming to do this year, is provide more materials for early learners. So thank you very much for that question. There are some activities in the Teaching Kids About Climate Change book that are transferable, and also in our main English site, subscribers can access some activities that could also be applicable or adapted for early childhood learners. But at the moment, it hasn't been as much of a focus area as we would have liked, and we will be changing that. So thank you.
Yeah, beautiful. Jeff has written Try a Walking Curriculum, which is also available on the Outdoor Learning Store, and that does have some amazing little sort of insights and get you in there. Talking with David Sobel, one of our other workshop presenters, at a point is that we try and keep doom and gloom, sort of deeper side of it, away from younger grades or younger kids, but there's definitely some fun activities that can get them thinking. How about you, Sydney? Anything there that would work?
I would say most of our resources are actually suitable for grade 4+. Some for 3+. Our early childhood educator resources would be found in the Sela and the Land program. So if you are interested in that book, there is like an audio that goes along with it right within the program as well that you can check out. But that's what we have for the youngins.
Jen, for you too, anything?
Yeah, so we most of our resources are K through 12. I agree with Ian. It's definitely an area that we've heard more and more educators interested in finding resources. I think there would definitely be some resources for our resources for rethinking that would be applicable to the younger grades, but yeah, not specifically.
Okay, beautiful. Jen, I'm going to stick with you. Lynn asks, is the action project funding only for grades 5 and up?
No, so that is the youth forums are for grades 5 and up, but even if you're grade 4, if you want to send me an email and your class is really keen to participate, that's available. Action project funding is available for students of all grades and classes of all grades. So I encourage any and all to apply.
Beautiful. And what was the deadline on that action funding?
We extended the deadline due to many different circumstances, but that's great news. So if we're accepting applications on an ongoing basis, and you just need to report by May. So to keep that in mind.
Fantastic. Looks like a great opportunity. Linda's asking, given our view of the ongoing issues with COVID, we want to take much more of our learning outside. Absolutely. But are there special resources to help us learn how to do this? We're an alternative school for special needs students. They're a non-profit community and camps group and a profit-based school altogether. In March 2020, they've shifted mostly outdoors, but they want more, and I imagine more ideas, more support, more resources. I'm going to throw it to you, Ian.
Yeah, we certainly have a lot on that. GreenTeacher being a provider of resources for outdoor and environmental education. We have a lot. I mean, we have our book Teaching About Invasive Species, which has a lot of activities that can be done outdoors. I mentioned both the climate change books. Most of those activities can be adapted outdoors and are best done outdoors. And then in our resource bank, our subscriber-based resource bank, we have loads of activities for outdoor learning, permaculture, school gardening, land, place-based learning, everything under the sun related to outdoor learning. I'll put a link in the chat here, because we do have, depending on the size of the school or the organization or school board, we do have differential rates that are all discounted. So you can take a look there, and that's our bread and butter. We love to support educators with resources, especially for getting outside. That's why we're all here.
And I could just follow up there in terms of what the outdoor learning store is trying to do. That inclusivity is a huge part of all of our work. So a lot of the books and resources that we have outside of this as well, there are some more introductory books like Juliet Robertson's Dirty Teaching, or the Walking Curriculum, Gillian Judson's, where you can take these very simple, they're like little ideas, like a little paragraph of an idea. And I work with people with disabilities, and I can see that you can scale them. You can take one focus. You can just go out for a walk. So being outside there, I would say there's a lot of options, hopefully in the store, to support you going forward. But thanks so much for your hard work. Sydney, any thoughts about taking your programs outside?
Yeah, for sure. So we have pretty much outdoor components woven throughout all of our programs, but I'm actually going to drop the link to our YouTube channel in the chat, because this past year for Take Me Outside Day, we actually did a couple of pre-recorded workshops that get students outside. So for example, one of them, students are outside measuring trees, taking notes on the foliage, types, identifying all that kind of fun stuff, putting it into a calculator to see how much CO2 that tree could absorb. So lots of really fun stuff there, but I would check out our YouTube channel, or you can visit the Take Me Outside website and you can see our workshops there, or they are woven throughout all of our programs as well.
Back to you, Jen. Any thoughts?
Yeah. Lots of thoughts, but yeah, it sounds like there's so many resources available. Again, yes, LSF integrates outdoor learning into tons of our programs, but we also, especially last year, hosted tons of webinars focused on different ways to integrate your teaching into outdoor learning. So bringing math outdoors, bringing how to connect with community partners outdoors and different subjects like that. So if you're interested, we are putting together a YouTube channel as well. But for now, if you have specific topics in mind, feel free to email me and I can just send you all the recordings that we have.
Super. And yet we have a full record of every workshop we've done with the Outdoor Learning Store as well, outdoorlearningstore.com/workshop. So you can look back at the history of all different kinds of topics that have come up. And I'll be sending out a link to this recording in your follow-up email, which will have lots of links as well to specific resources and things. And we'll move you into our little workshop list that we have coming up as well. Vizin, I'm not sure if I pronounced that correct, forgive me, is saying, is there a curriculum for homeschooling parents? Like, where to start? Anybody, have you three want to put a hand up and start there? I mean, it seems...
That's a very timely question as well. We have been in a lot of talks very recently about reaching out in particular to homeschooling communities. And we don't currently have homeschooling listed in any of our bulk subscription offerings, but that will be very shortly added. And even before it's added, we can still put something together on request because, yes, we recognize that there's tremendous opportunity there, and it's a community that we certainly want to be engaged with. So, yeah. This audience seems to have some clairvoyance. I'm very impressed.
And I'd just like to support with a couple of different books that are from the store. Gillian Judson, who wrote the walking curriculum, she's got backgrounds are the worst, engaging imagination in ecological education, practical strategies for teaching. That's really kind of like a pedagogical sort of, will help you structure if you were going to look into teaching ecologically, and everything they have is about imagination. And that's not just like, it's all about play. It's about the way that our brains work and retain information. And so much of that is to do with engaging the imagination. We also have another book, Casey Ray, I wonder if it's going to come up. It's called The School Garden Curriculum. I won't try. The School Garden Curriculum. And that's got some fantastic things. It's not just about planting a garden, but it's connected with food, food security, climate, changes through the seasons. So there's some really great ideas in there for working your way through. Also on our website, we have different themes, and you can click curriculum connections, and you can see the kind of books that are supporting the in-school curriculum and start to sort of frame your own. Shannon asks, who's the author of the walking curriculum? It's Gillian Judson. I'll type it in the chat, her name for you. Again, available in the Outdoor Learning Store, and it is just, I mean, it's a winner. It's this thick, little breakdowns, and in combination with all of the resources being offered here today, online or via teaching kids or teaching teens. Yeah, I feel like we could cover a curriculum for homeschoolers for sure. I'm gonna see. I hope that answers your question. Audrey's asking, she's curious as to why some of the resources are free and others are subscription based. If they're all not-for-profit organizations, does it come from different funding? I wonder.
I can jump in just to sort of keep us on the same order here. Yeah, GreenTeacher, some of our resources are free. So our webinars, our podcasts are free and open source. And our main source of income are sales of the books and the subscription fees for the resource portal. So that's how we are able to do our business and able to do some of the free resources as well, like the webinars and the podcasts. So that's what things look like on the GreenTeacher side.
Yeah, we actually get asked this question quite often because our resources are free. Where does the money come from? They're all funded by an array of different people. So pretty much every program is funded by a different organization, from TD Friends of the Environment Foundation to the Government of Canada, to even Dow Chemical funds one of our programs. It doesn't influence the content of the programs at all, but it does help keep us moving. And that's why we do have a login that's required to access the resources as part of those funding requirements. I hope that helps.
Similar to Sydney, the funding structure is program-based, so many different funders for different programs that really specific requirements and asks that we fulfill. And we have information on where we get our funding and where all the money goes and what influences how we decide who funds us on our site. So each organization keeps themselves running a little bit differently with funds from different places.
Like I say, there's another nonprofit. Yeah, obviously we're operating a store. We have money coming in from that that's being fed back, and grant funding to support all of that. An enormous amount of work goes into grant writing. If anyone else is doing that through, parent advisory councils or anything like, so everyone's working really hard to give everything away for free. But there's also, there's a lot of value to what everybody's doing, and I think it's important to recognize that people are working very hard to support. But it is important to think about where things are coming from. Okay, it's 5 o'clock. I think that was pretty much it. Again, if you have any more questions, we can you can follow up in our email. All of the information will be there. Okay, it's time for a couple of prizes. Exciting. Well, firstly, I'm just going to share about our next workshop and events. So our next one is this coming Thursday. It's called Singing in Solidarity, Exploring Environmental Inquiry and Justice Through the Arts. It's on January 27th at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, with Natural Curiosity. So it's all about getting some musicality in there. So that's quite fun. You can sign up for all of our workshops. They are free at outdoorlearningstore.com workshops. We'll put the link in there. For books and resources, I've put the link in and we'll put it in again. And we do have a climate and sustainability theme. So you can just click on that and it will send you to the grouped resources like the Fantastic Sealer in the Land, like Connecting the Dots, like teaching kids and teaching teens about climate change. So you can see we're trying to do our best work to communicate this effectively for you. And now, and as well, if you're perhaps part of a school or a bigger organization, if you spend $500, you get a free gift card for $50. So that will be another couple of books that you could add on to your order. And we also have a lot of outdoor learning equipment as well to support in those resources. Okay, prizes. I have 2 $25 gift cards to access climate and sustainability resources on the Outdoor Learning Store. So maybe you could get a couple of these books. So I'm going to ask you to write me 3 words, and they must begin with CAS for climate and sustainability. And the first person to type something in the chat that's not those 3 letters, but is connected to our workshop is going to get a gift card. So I'm looking for 3 words. Don't hit enter between, it will be too hard. So CAS, calm our systems. Okay, I like that. The systems of our world. I don't know how calm they are, but anybody else got any other words they want to share? Courage Action Stewards, Ellen, in there. I love it. And Classroom Action Super, those were fantastic. I'm going to stop all curriculum all around students, clean air systems. I'm going to go with Ellen's and Lindsay's as giving the sort of indication from the actual workshop and sharing with us. So Ellen, Lindsay, if you can send me a private message with your email, please. I'll get those gift cards to you via email. Oh, thanks. Classroom Action Support, Caring Air Steward, Children Action Stewards. I love it. Excellent work. And I believe that Fahim's got a couple of gifties up her sleeve too.
I do. Jade, you always have such fun, creative ways to do this. I feel like I need to step it up instead of picking randomly. I'll think about it ahead of time next time, but for now I've already randomly picked 2 winners, and they are Ivana Farkerson you won a Take Me Outside outdoor weatherproof journal. And the second winner for the weatherproof outdoor journal is Roxanne Brode. Congrats, Roxanne and Ivana. Just send me a private message on here with your email and I'll be in touch and we'll get you your journals mailed out.
Fantastic. So in the interest of everyone's dedicating so much of their lives to screens and learning and being here, thank you for joining us. Again, check your spam tomorrow. If you don't have an email by tomorrow morning with the recording, links to a certificate that you can get for participation, and all of the links to the resources, please check your spam. It will be with you. And now I'll say thank you. If you do need to leave, please do. But our hosts have agreed to stick around for just a few minutes. If you would have any additional Q&As to do with them. So thank you so much for joining us if you do have to go. And if anyone else has got anything else they'd like to share, please, this is the time. Type in the chat or maybe pop a hand up with a reaction and we can pose the questions.
And all the lovely comments and thank yous coming in for Ian, Sydney, and Jen. You guys were awesome.
Anyone not feeling shy and wanting to?
Well, it was a great evening. Well, for me, it's 9 o'clock in Eastern, but but it's always a great time, and I'm learning so much. I'm just thinking, I can just teach grade 5, 6 French. Like I have to make my own school to be able to teach what I love. But no, it's great. Thank you. It's always a good time.
Merci, Julie.
Merci. Bonne nuit.
Do you know what? I think everyone's zoomed out. Everyone's really appreciated all your efforts, but I think we are complete. So with that, I will say thank you so much to those who have joined us, and we'll see you again, hopefully for one of our other workshops. Thanks to Ian, Sydney, and Jen for your fantastic expertise. We'll see you again soon.